Welcome to the Fireside Storyteller. Today, we all love to hear stories of Sasquatch, but Sasquatch has gone by many names for centuries. One of our first videos that we talked about the character Skookum, one of the oldest tales of the Sasquatch genre. Skookum was the wise guardian of the mountains. Today, let's venture north along the Pacific coast to the lands of Kwakwaka'wakw people. Here in the dense forests of what we now call British Columbia, they tell of a very different kind of forest giant, one that teaches through fear rather than wisdom. This is the story of Tsonoqua, and it shows us another side of these mysterious beings. While Skookum guided through wisdom, Tsonoqua taught through terror. But as you'll see, even the most frightening lessons can lead to survival and strength. In a coastal village where cedar longhouses faced the endless Pacific waves, parents would gather their children close when darkness fell. Listen, they would say, for the sound of heavy breathing in the forest. Listen for the call of whoo, whoo. That is Tsonoqua, and she hungers for children who wander too far from home. Tsonoqua was unlike any other forest giant. Imagine, if you will, a massive figure with wild matted hair that hung like rain-soaked cedar bark. Her eyes glowed hot like coals in the darkness, and her lips were pursed in a permanent whistle that hunted whoo, whoo, that echoed through the twilight forest. But here's something fascinating about Tsonoqua. She was both feared and, in a strange way, respected. You see, the children she took didn't always disappear forever. Some would return changed. They came back knowing the secrets of the forest, how to track, how to find food, how to survive in the deepest wilderness. There was a young girl named Sweetgrass who learned this truth firsthand. Despite her mother's warnings, she loved to wander just a little too far into the forest gathering berries. The best berries, she would say, are always just beyond where we're allowed to go. One day, as the sun began to sink and the shadows grew long, Sweetgrass followed a patch of particularly plump blueberries, deeper and deeper into the woods. She was so focused on gathering that she didn't notice that silence falling around her, that terrible quiet that we've learned about in our last story, Skookum. When nature itself holds its breath, then she heard it. Woo! Woo! The sound froze her in place. It seemed to come everywhere and nowhere at once. Then came the heavy breathing, like wind through the deep cave. Sweetgrass turned slowly, her basket of berries tumbling from her trembling fingers. There stood Tsonoqua, twice as tall as any man, her coal-bright eyes fixed on the young girl. But instead of running, which is what every instinct screamed to do, Sweetgrass remembered the other stories, the ones whispered by elders around the fires. The stories that said Tsonoqua tested children's courage as much as she hunted them. So Sweetgrass stood her ground. I hear you in the forest, she said, her voice shaking but clear. I know you teach those who are brave enough to learn. Tsonoqua's fierce expression didn't change, but something shifted in those burning eyes. She reached down with hands the size of cedar planks and lifted Sweetgrass from the ground. What happened next is something Sweetgrass would later struggle to describe. For 3 days, and 3 nights, Tsonoqua carried her through the deepest parts of the forest. But they weren't days of terror. They were days of learning. Tsonoqua showed her how to read moss patterns, to find north, how to identify plants that could heal and plants that could harm, how to move silently through the underbrush, and how to listen to the forest's countless voices. When Sweetgrass returned to the village, she was no longer just a girl who wandered too far for berries. She had become something more, a keeper of forest wisdom, a living bridge between the village and the wild. And from that day forward, she taught others what she had learned. Tsonoqua is fearsome, she would tell the wide-eyed children, but she is also a teacher. She frightens us to make us wise, chases us to make us swift, and tests us to make us strong. The people of her village came to understand that Tsonoqua's lessons, though taught through fear, were gifts meant to keep their children alive and their community strong. She wasn't just a monster in the woods. She was a force of nature, teaching vital truths about survival and respect for the wilderness. Even today, hikers in the Pacific Northwest sometimes report hearing an odd whistling sound in the deepest parts of the forest. A sort of whoo, whoo, that makes the hair stand up on the back of their necks. Those who know the old stories don't run. Instead, they listen, wondering what lessons the forest might be trying to teach them. So, in these last 2 stories, Skookum and Tsonoqua, we have seen the faces of these forest beings tonight. Skookum, the wise guardian, and Tsonoqua, the fierce teacher. Different as they might seem, both stories share a vital truth. The wilderness demands our respect, and those who learn this lesson gain not just survival, but wisdom. In our next video, we'll venture into more recent times, exploring encounters that bridge the ancient and the modern worlds. But for now, I'm curious, what do you think about these different approaches to teaching wilderness wisdom? Do you think sometimes fear can be as effective as teaching gentleness? Go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments below. Please remember to subscribe for more tales from mysterious edges of our world. And join our community at the Fireside Storyteller, where ancient wisdom meets modern wonder.